Floodgate is an initiative that yourself and Denker created. What challenges were you trying to address or meet when you guys were conceiving this tool?
Um, so the very first thing I had in mind, and that's even before it was Floodgate, was when I was writing my tutorials about the different permissions in the game.
Hmm,
Maybe you have seen that on Starkside.
I have.
I described that permission model, and I thought that there would be a way to work around that permission model to enable ship and crewmates um, lease, basically,
Yeah.
um, like a rental service. And I managed to have something working in principle, but then the problem was about the guarantees that you can offer to the lessor and the lessee. And okay, but if I give my ship and then they will just send it at the end of the belt and they will just abandon there, who is responsible for bringing it back and collaterals and everything there. And so that's why it stopped me at that time and why it's not implemented. But then something else came back by where I noticed that Harvard crewmates had the possibility to have a trait that is unavailable for most other crewmates, and that's the logistics trait um, that allows over overloading in terms of volume and not only in mass, because the normal hauler trait that you can have, even on Adalians, is just overloading in terms of mass and not in terms of volume. And propellant tanks being the perfect ratio for hydrojet propellant, it means that even if you have crew with the hauler trait, you cannot fit more propellant in there. And so I designed a way so that I discussed with Star Wars Freak, Professor Sabre, and Grey Area at that time because they were three of the biggest First Alliance members with the best logistic crews. And in the end, that was Star Wars Freak who ended up putting a crew in Floodgate. Um, about a design that would allow them to put a crew in the application. The crew would be so the player of the crew would be the application through the delegation system, and the application would allow anyone to just log into the application, select a propellant source, a ship, and then overfuel that ship using the crew that is there.
So the thing that surprised me about this when I first used it was the fact that the same crew, the
Mm-hmm.
delegated crew, I guess,
Yeah.
can effectively load for every task asked of it across the entire rock. It felt kind of game breaking for me at the time because it kind of removes the need for individuals to use their own logistics crew. How do you feel about that?
Um, so there are two ways of thinking about that. The first one is yes, it's game breaking because we allow everyone to use those overpowered bonuses. The second one is it brings everyone on a foot of equality because instead of having, in this case, Star Wars Freak able to overload his um, ships usually using plus 26% volume, then everyone can just do it now for a very small fee.
Indeed. But then I guess I reconsidered, given the possible future state for this is for many asteroids to have their own mixture of
Mm-hmm.
delegated crews to Floodgate. So one of the things that I would quite like to do once I've had a better opportunity or more opportunity to build up a decent logistics crew, I have an okay one, but it's not as good as Star Wars Freaks, for example, would be to delegate one onto one of my rocks, essentially as an incentive for players to come and to set the fee for something quite low. Is that the end game that you saw for Floodgate when you were creating it?
Yes, exactly. That's something that I forgot to mention before, and I'm glad you pointed out. So basically, everyone is able to register their own crew onto Floodgate and make it available so that it can basically refueling ships has now become just a subset of these main transfer goods things, where you can just transfer general goods between any inventories that you own. And a lot of people have been using that to send more materials to their asteroid when they start colonizing it. So mainly, for example, fluid mods, they are very bulky in terms of volume. And so having 25% additional room to fit more helps a lot in the early development of an asteroid. So then the idea is, as you can see here, we also have one that has been registered on 104, one that has been registered on Grey Tower, and anyone who actually owns a crew which could be interesting to use for any visitor on their asteroid. They can try to just register it on Floodgate and monetize it basically. You can, for example, here on AP, you have Tetris Elite, which is Star Wars Freaks crew, and every time someone goes to Floodgate and transfers goods using Tetris Elite, then they pay a 10,000 fee, a 10,000 sway fee, and most of that sway fee goes to Star Wars Freak. As a team for Floodgate development, we just take 15% of that fee. But it means that if you have a good crew and you want to make it available to other people because it provides bonuses that they would be willing to pay for, then you get money out of that crew.
I'm looking forward to the first non-First Alliance crew that get registered here.
I'm waiting for Gnarly to put one on 465.
Oh, has he said he's doing it?
Not yet. I mean, I know he has a logistic crew, and at the moment he's been using it for himself. I don't know if someday maybe he will try to incentivize or attract traders by providing a service that they can overload their ships as well when they fly out of 465.
If I delegate my crew to Floodgate, can I no longer use it for my own packing?
Yes, because the delegation makes um, the the address that you delegate to the only player of that crew. So these crews that you can see here are delegated to Floodgate, so only Floodgate can play them, and you do not see them anymore in your own game UI.
Okay.
But you can still go to Floodgate and use them to transfer those goods. Of course, you will not be able to do everything that you would want to do with them, but doesn't mean that they are unavailable to you. You can still use them via Floodgate as well.
Yeah, you can pay yourself, I guess, to
Yes.
get a small cut. But that seems fine. So that is packing. What have you brought to Floodgate since it launched beyond packing?
So actually, in the first place, there was just the refueling. There was no packing. So packing was actually our second feature. And after that, we have added things that are not relying on a crew that is registered to Floodgate, but more like direct tools instead of the Floodgate services, as we call them.
Oh,
Direct tools.
sorry to interrupt. Before we move on, what is used more, fuel ship or transfer goods?
Definitely the transfer goods. Actually, the fuel ship is not used that much, surprisingly. Um, Transfer goods is very interesting because when you can pack more into, let's say you have 4 light transports, you can pack the same as in 5 light transports. So basically, every 4 ships, you get an extra ship. The fuel, it's not really often that you need to have the additional 25% of fuel, and the reality of rocket propulsion is that for every kilogram of fuel that you put in, you need additional fuel to push that kilogram of fuel as well. So the overfueling is, you basically have diminishing returns on your propellant efficiency when you put more in there. So I'm assuming that people realize that as well. And if they can go to their asteroid with 4 kilotons of fuel, they will go with 4 kilotons of fuel instead of putting 5, even if it increases the trip from maybe 6 days to 7 days. That's not the end of the world.
Lot management was next, wasn't it?
Yes, so that's the first tool that we introduced. As I mentioned, tools are not reliant on any crew that has been registered into Floodgate. It's just basically another game UI that for the moment has still very limited possibilities, but helps you do things a bit more or a bit more quickly than if you were going through every lot in the game in that case. So the idea here is I can have, for example, here all my lots on Adalia Prime, and I can say that I want to renew all of them except, for example, those where I know that it was an old base that I had near Saline, and I'm not interested in those anymore. And for the moment, we can see that we have all my lots are pretty much 100 days now, just for ease of management. In the beginning, I said that I would stick them all to the same end date. That would be a lot easier. And then when we built this, the goal was that you can select the lot and you can select the date. And there you can see I can extend 55 leases that I have on AP, and that will cost me close to 400,000, and you have the details here. Most of that cost, the vast majority of that cost, is the list extension, so that's what you are paying to the asteroid owner, and for those 55 lots you just pay 7,400 in fees for Floodgate, so that we put in our pocket for Floodgate development.
What is that as a percentage?
So no, it's not a percentage, meaning that if here you want to extend, that was 60 and something days here, but if we want to go even further, you have 140 days and you still have there. So it's based on the number of lots, and you get a very aggressive discount the more lots you take, because the fee is based on the square root of the number of lots.
I see. Interesting.
So we take 1,000 times the square root of the number of lots. So if you pay for 1 lot, you will pay 1,000. If you pay for 4 lots, you will pay 2. 9 lots, you will pay 3, and so on.
And are you seeing much use for this tool in particular?
I haven't been monitoring it a lot, and I actually do not have, now that we have the new mining companion as well, I do not have any way of checking the difference, I think, or any easy way. Maybe I could try to write some monitoring. Maybe a Dune dashboard would do it. I don't know, but for the moment I didn't have a deep look in that.
Okay, so let's move on then to the most recent edition, which was your mining companion, just released a few days ago.
Yep.
Talk us through this one.
And just like the lot agreement, it's mostly Denker who did that. Originally, I was working on the Cairo side, but as those are just pure UI, it's Denker who went all in and implemented the lot agreement tool and the mining companion. So we just have some discussions about the features that it would allow, basically. But he did that almost all by himself.
Cool.
And so here the idea is that, for example, I can go to my 104 lots and I can see my different extractors that I have here. And I can very easily say, oh, those I'm low on core samples. So what I want to do, and it remembers the latest one that I've chosen here, the latest option. By default, on the first time, it will go on the first, on the highest abundance, but then it will just try to remember what you entered. And there I can say,
Nice.
okay, I want to queue 2 core samples on this one. Let's do 2 on that one as well. And this is actually just a different crew. I can't remember. But then yeah, you have all those samples here. And when you click on this start here, with the same kind of pricing as the lot agreement. So here the base is 200, but then it's multiplied by the square root of the number of core samples. So very aggressive discounts as well. If you want to queue 100 there, you will just pay 2,000 basically in fees. So very small.
So queues up the core samples, saves you having to do it one by one, which is
Yes.
many clicks in the game UI.
Instead of going through the game UI and selecting your resource every time and selecting your core drill source as well, and then repeating for the next extractor or waiting for the transaction to go through in order to repeat on the same extractor, you just very easily go there, Q1, click Q1, and then in the end you start 6 and there will be, oh, interesting. Maybe I'm not logged in. My wallet has locked itself.
What are the next enhancements to this? Clearly, I'm thinking sample improvements.
Yeah, so the reason why for the moment, well, of course, everything goes step by step, so we can't release everything at the same time. But for the moment, regarding queuing sample improvements and queuing extraction, what would be great would be first that Influence releases the account-wide permissions, because otherwise we need to detect which sample belongs to who, and we need to probably also make them available via a sale. And so that's a lot of logic that will just become obsolete while we when we have the account-wide permissions.
Understood. So this at the moment, the game treats a core sample as being owned by the specific crew that
Yes.
completed the sample, as opposed to the account
Yes,
of the
that's
player.
correct.
Yeah.
And if you want to share a sample between your different crews, you need to put it up for sale first. And so here the logic is not that, well, problem is that also you need to wait for the sample to be available before you can put it up for sale. So we cannot include that into this call. So what would need to be done is an additional UI just to put all your, or to make all your samples available for sale, so that you can get them through all your crews. And yeah, so there's a lot of additional logic here. So hopefully, if it doesn't take too long for UG to implement that account-wide permission for core samples, we can just bypass that and consider then that all samples are available for all crews in your account.
Okay. Now it's interesting, isn't it? Like this clearly abstracts away some of the most boring aspects of the gameplay. Isn't that, though, playing the game?
I wonder the same. I've had a few discussions already with a few people about that. The team considers that, or either way has said multiple times that he would be thrilled seeing third-party clients. So in the end, Floodgate is starting to be a third-party client. Now you have the core sampling that exists there. You have the lot renewal that exists there. If we have on top of that, by steps, like I said, core improvement, then extraction, then maybe we'll support something for industry as well, manufacturing, and submitting those actions in bulk, so that people can be more efficient in playing the game. Yes, they are still playing the game, but through a third-party client. And yeah, are they still playing the game if they are not using the main client in the end? Uh, are you still playing Influence if you never log into the main client and look at an asteroid surface?
Yeah. I mean, Influence is quite a conceptual game already in the sense that much of the gameplay occurs in one's head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the actions are not currently well represented via the game UI, via graphics, for instance.
Mm-hmm. True.
You execute an action or transaction, and they go through, the thing happens. What actually happens is largely not visualized. So I feel like what you're describing, effectively a replacement UI for the game, feels entirely keeping with the decentralized ethos of the game's fundamentals to me. This is a strength of blockchain, of Web3, is it not?
Yes, that's also something that I discussed with Isaway in an interview with him. That blockchain forces the openness for the game developer. Um, you can look at other games Skyrim or Minecraft, for example, when we talk about modding, they are very well known for that, and they
Mm.
expose an API in their client so that you can just import things. Um, here, the because the backend of the game is not on a closed server where you cannot just interact with it. Like if you play a World of Warcraft, for example, you can have client-side mods, but you cannot just decide to query the Blizzard server in the background and
Mm-hmm.
send actions. So you will not be able, for example, to implement your own game client because it's the blockchain and it's permissionless. Um, Anyone can just decide to build an application that sends commands directly to the blockchain and reads the blockchain, even if UG was not providing the API that the client relies on, we would be able to extract the information from the blockchain ourselves. Um, and yeah, the because the blockchain is permissionless, it forces the openness, and you can just do whatever you want with this.
In your view, how unstoppable is Influence right now? If UG shut down, um,
Um,
and assuming some minimal handover from them to the community, uh, could the game technically survive as it is right now?
it depends on the size of that handover.
Mm.
So in its current form with the game client and the indexer that they have been running, the game is still centralized and you need to have some server somewhere to run that client, and UG has not released that code publicly, so the client code is not public, the indexer code is not public. um, that would need to be released publicly if we want someone in the community to be able to do something with it, and then that person would probably need to purchase some servers somewhere.
Mm.
I don't know, at Amazon or Google, or I don't know what their infrastructure is, but to just try and redeploy all that thing.
Mm.
Even Floodgate, for example, which is, as I said, starting to be a third-party client, is relying on the API that is provided by their own, the UG indexer, which is centralized. We are not relying on reading the blockchain directly. So
Mm. Interesting.
if UG stops the indexer, the game client stops working, and Floodgate stops working, and everything that relies on the API stops working. So Adalia.info, StarkSite, the only thing that will keep working is probably the Dune dashboard, but nobody will be able to play the game. Just visualize the latest state of it. That's all.
Uh, but we have a roadmap now for decentralization based on
Mm,
what you've said.
Well, yeah, if they can release it publicly, yeah, then yeah, maybe some people would be willing to introduce some redundancy as well. Um, they have been talking about releasing that so that anyone can run an influence node, for example, and basically when you have thousands of players, which is actually more than what we have today. But if the game is successful and we have thousands of players, and you have the big actors of the game saying, "Oh, there's no way that game goes down. I'm doing my part and I'm running my indexer somewhere, maybe renting a server or maybe in a Raspberry Pi just below my TV or whatever," and then the game would be unstoppable. Yes, in that case.
I think that there are many in the community, as small as it is at the moment, who would put their hands up to support there. So
Yes.
that's exciting. So is this the start of some kind of bot or automation arms race? Can we expect to see more of the tools of these types cropping up now, Cheveuxxx?
Um, these are two different questions. So this has been a very big debate actually, what is qualified as a bot and what is qualified as a tool or whatever. And if I were to give a definition, I would say that what we built with Floodgate is something that relies only on the current game state and brings it in a new state game just instantly. And maybe we are queuing stuff that will last for 24 hours because that's what the game supports. But we are just bringing it in a new game state. And once I click that button and I'm not going there anymore, it's just done. Nothing else is happening anymore. What I would consider as a bot would be something where you say, oh, every day at 10 o'clock, you start a new extraction, and I just set it up once, and then it submits multiple transactions which alter the game states multiple times, and not based on the current game state, but also on future game states. So fully automated, and you go on vacation for 2 weeks, and your bot is still playing for you. Will we see that happen? I would say probably. Will I be involved in that? I hope not. I do not like this idea. Even if through Floodgate we are building some tools that are allowing the players to be way more efficient, and I agree that if you can just queue 100 core sample at a single click on a button, that's already a lot of automation. But you still have to do this action yourself every time you want those 100 core sample. You cannot just say, okay, just play the game and I will collect the rewards later.
The thing is, most of the game at the moment, well, maybe not most, but so much of the game at the moment is sampling and extraction. If you're being kind, I guess you could say automating those aspects frees up time for players to play the game, but there's not that much rest of the game at the moment. Sure, there's production and there is trading, but so much time is taken up with sampling at the moment. Perhaps the balance of this changes when we have more content in discovery and conflict.
Yes, and also on top of not having a lot of other things that you have that you can do, these are still just a few seconds per action that you take into the game. So we have that kind of time multiplier that is offered by the game, because you just take a 5-second action and then it runs for hours or even for days. So if you want, and if you have the money for that, if you have enough capital, you can just build 50 different refineries and just queue up, and that will take you, okay, you can play for 2 hours managing those 50 different refineries, but then they will just run for 3 or 4 days. And so in 2 hours, you have 50 times 4 days of action that is going. And yeah, in in most games you have this differentiation between players who have a lot of time but not a lot of money. Like usually those would be young people, students, people like that. And you have people with enough money, I would say, to at least inject funds in the game, and not a lot of time, because those are older people. They are parents with kids and a day job, and they do not have a lot of time to put into a game, but they have money that they get from that day job, and they can put into the game to advance faster. And the usual balance is achieved by having the time players being the grinders on resources, on resource collection, which takes a lot of time and effort, and then the money players being able to buy those resources and do things like production, where you start something, it doesn't take long for you, and then you can make a profit because you just basically profit on your money investment. And the time players, they profit on the time that they can put into the game. Here on Influence, time is irrelevant. If you don't have the money to build 50 or 100 extractors, then you might have 3 hours a day to play Influence, or 12 hours a day to play Influence. You cannot make more. If you just have your 6 extractors, you can look at those timers as hard as you can. They will not go faster.
What are you looking forward to the most in the game, gameplay wise?
Obviously, the next big step should be discovery, and I hope that we have a lot new functionalities there to add to, as you said, there's not much more once you automate the sampling and extraction. You just are left with some industry and some trading. Adding new gameplays on top of that, like the research and science that have been talked about. Later, probably much later, we will have conflict with PvP. Who knows what we will get in between, but those are a long way away from now. I don't know exactly.
Are you looking forward to both? Because not everybody is looking forward to both by the sounds. Some
Yes, I am.
people like, okay, you want both.
When I was playing Eve, I was actually mostly Kerbeer, high-sec player, just running missions and doing industry. But you cannot have an industry without some destruction. So I don't know yet if I will really take part into the PvP actively, like targeting ships and destroying them. That will depend a lot on how the gameplay is implemented, if I like it or not. But we really need to have some destruction to sustain the industry. We will have also probably, at least, well, much sooner than conflict, of course. We will have the maintenance update where buildings will degrade over time and you have to maintain them and probably spend resources for that.
Sounds like a job for Floodgate.
Yes, probably as well. Yeah, we can probably help people with that automation of the maintenance. So yeah, but at least even if it doesn't bring a lot of additional gameplay, the consumption of all these extra resources will bring or sustain the economy. At least that's what I hope. For the moment, Influence is, I would consider, really kind of a solo game. If you are big enough, you can just do it yourself, and you are actually not interacting on the markets a lot. And you can see that on AP, where just all resources, they are just going to zero, basically. And even on other markets, like on 104, there are very little or very few buy orders. And so that's not a really healthy economy there when people are just doing the things themselves instead of trading. If everyone is looking to sell what they produce so that they can make their own profit, but they are not willing to buy anything from anyone else. in a healthy economy, healthy industry, you would buy your N-1s to produce what you want to sell. And here, it's very easy to just go from the bottom and have a few extractors, take everything through your refineries and factories, and try to sell your finished product.
Cheveuxxx, this is by far the longest interview that I've ever done. Thank you for joining me.
Setting
Thank
a
you for
new
your
record.
insights.
My pleasure. That was really nice talking to you. Thank you for your questions.